Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Welcome, everybody, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind. My guest today is Pat Meidell. She is a registered investment advisor, and that's what she's going to do. She's going to give us some wonderful advice about how to take care of our money, how to hang on to it, how to help it grow. And more than that, and this is the really important part as far as I'm concerned, what mistakes not to make. This came up in a conversation with Pat, and I thought, oh my gosh, what a great thing to talk about on the podcast. So, welcome, Pat.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So, I'm going to start out with our question that we have to ask everybody at the very beginning. Pat, how old are you?
Gosh, I didn't think you're going to make me reveal that. I am 83, slipping into 84 next month.
Okay, now come
Yeah.
on, Pat. You can't have that out there and not have people say, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
84, 83? That
Thanks.
doesn't seem possible. You look so beautiful. So,
Thank you.
you are a perfect example of what we can be as a person of age.
Yeah.
So, how about this? Have you ever lied about your age?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
all right. And what
Sometimes
do you,
people will ask me, and well, let me say this. I don't think many people ask me, and they assume that I'm younger than I am, and I'm still working. So when I tell them, I'm still working in this age, they probably think, well, you must have to work. And that's not the case. I could go home, but I find the mental stimulation is really important. And the interaction with people, I think, is really what keeps you viable and young. And it gives you reason to get up in the morning and make a difference.
are a lot of your clients persons of age?
It's kind of a combination. I do have some younger people, but sometimes they're children of my clients, and they could range anything from, I just worked with a young kid that's 18 years old. And but a lot of clients now, they'll tell me you can't retire until I'm gone. And I thought, what is this, a race to the end? I mean, which one goes first? But so I have clients in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and I have some of them that are older than I am.
Okay. I know exactly what they're talking about because people who help me with things around the farm or wherever, all kinds of folks, mechanics, whatever, they're retiring. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to find anybody as good as that again? So I totally understand your clients wanting to hang on to you. Well, what age do you feel when you think about it?
Well, depends if I've been to Pilates or I've been lifting weights. I don't even think about how old I am. I have no concept. I mean, I just really don't. Um, have I had the aches and pains of everybody? Oh yeah, I've had a knee replacement and I had a little lower back surgery for some stenosis. But I don't know, I play mahjong with these gals that are 50, 60, and I hold my own really easily. And so I would probably tell you I'm probably in my 70s, maybe, but
Okay.
who's counting?
What's the most challenging thing about being the age you are?
Uh, think. I think the most challenging is, well, I'll be really candid. I have a husband who has dementia. And I think the most challenging is to get to this age and realize, it's sort of like the grieving process. Okay. You have to look at your life and go, wait a minute, there are some things that that train has left the station. And you're not going to start a new business. And you're not going to be maybe traveling around the world on your own. And, there are challenges now to who to find to do things with that are capable physically or financially. So I think that's what's the challenge. People that are wanting to do things. And then I think endurance. I have a lot of energy, but can I work the same physical labor out in the yard and do all that for hours and hours? No, I have to stop and rest. And I'm aware of my body, and I'm aware it needs exercise, it needs water, it needs rest. I think I'm more in tune now than I think I was in my 20s and 30s. And I have to learn to pace myself a little bit. Hey, that's enough for today.
I would sure agree with that. I am much more aware of my body because I have to be more cautious about a lot of
Oh
things.
yeah.
I sort of
No, I'm
resent
not.
that restriction, but it does bring awareness, and it also brings a lot of gratitude for everything that still works. So
I think the challenge for me at this age is balance. And it's not like I'm a doddering, old woman, but I'm very aware. We go to Pilates and they get you up on a box and you do this. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this Circus Soleil? And these young gals are, you know, Arabists and doing this stuff. And I go, oh my God, I don't want to fall off. So it's balance. And it's like you need to stand on one foot and brush your teeth and then stand on the other foot, and balance goes, and I'm aware of that. So I'm, always making sure that I'm not gonna, topple over. And I've not had anything like that, but yeah, I think balance and being aware.
so let's back up a little bit because you were talking a bit about the grieving that you're already experiencing with a husband who's going through dementia. And I know when we talked together before that you were saying that people who are in that place, they have decisions to make financially, and sometimes it's not the best time to make those decisions.
Right.
So
I
you're the
think there's two
expert, Pat. Tell us
stages.
how to do this thing.
Yeah. I think there's two stages. I think there is with the spouse, there is when they change and start the deterioration process before you do, there is the grieving of this is someone you loved and they are not that person anymore. And then there's the other stage where they passed, and then you are it's still a grieving process, and you go through it. Anger, I mean, the Helen Keebler-Ross book, the stages of death and dying and grieving. And grieving, I think there is an anger stage, and then I think there is a sad stage, and then there's a denial stage. And I think we go up and down that ladder all the time. And I see, because of sadness, because of the grieving aspect of it and the angry, sometimes for, in particular, widows, I see some mistakes that are made. And one of them, I guess I will say, that I think is a real challenge for widows or even those who are now having to handle everything. Many women, they just didn't know where the gold was hidden. They didn't write the checks. They were not aware of budgeting. They don't even know the passwords. They don't know the passwords on the computer that their husband has. He dies and they can't find them, and they're in a mess. Okay. So a lot of times I'll say, you have to get involved. You've got to start writing the checks. You've got to know what the budget is. You've got to have this. And I think part of the grief is to feel at odds with not being in charge of not knowing what to do. Maybe giving too much power to your spouse and too much power to the point that they've handled all the decisions and you've been sort of a little kept woman. Now, that's not everybody. A lot of women are very, very strong and they do their own. But sometimes they've kept things so separate, they do not know where everything is. And so I always, say, hey, get involved. Money talk makes good pillow talk. It also creates, as you know, anxiety and anger, and sometimes some heated discussions. But you can't be left vulnerable. And that's what I see a lot that happens. And then you're in the middle of the grieving process, and now what's looming is this big financial thing that is just incomprehensible to you, and you're afraid of what step to take next. Robin, I will never forget, a woman was going through the grieving process, and what she did, because she felt so bad, one of the big mistakes I saw her make is that she gave away so much money to her children. She was feeling bad, and she thought, if I give you this, you will feel better about having lost your father. And she ended up giving so much that she depleted what she needed for her own reserves. And if you think the kids are going to give it back, you're wrong, because they will have spent it for whatever they want. So I think that's kind of one of the major things is you try to feel better by gifting a lot away, whether it's donations to charities or whether it's kids, before you actually know what is it going to take to keep the wolf to the door for me, and also to create a life. Because part of grieving is you have to rediscover yourself as a single. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm wondering if also survivor's guilt doesn't come into play. I shouldn't be making money on my spouse's death. I miss him. I'm grieving. And here I am really flush with what seems like an enormous amount of money because it's come all at once. We
Mhm.
forget, I guess, that it's going to go out little bit by little bit by little bit.
Yeah,
And yeah, to hang
yeah,
on and remember we may last a lot longer.
yeah.
Is there a kind of an age at which you would advise spouses who haven't been in touch with all the financial stuff to start asking to be taught, maybe before it's a little bit late for that? Or is that not a
I don't
reason?
think there's an age specific. I just think women need to be smart all the time. You know what I mean? So I don't think you wait till you're 60, whatever. A lot of people come in for financial advice, financial counseling. And I think one of the things women have to be sure is that whoever the advisor is, that they're talking to you. You know, they're not just talking to your spouse, but they're also talking to you, and you're resonating with them and you get what they're talking about. And if you don't understand, you ask the question, well, how does that really work? I mean, I don't understand that. And you've got to find somebody that you can talk to that understands what you don't know and it doesn't make you feel stupid, you know?
It occurs to me that it might be advisable to make an appointment for yourself, not
Yeah,
necessarily to be sitting there next to your husband, because if he's been doing all this, it's easy to just kind of tune out by habit. He'll take care of it. I don't have to listen.
yeah.
And it also occurs to me because this is a challenge for me. And I'm thinking of a friend of mine for whom it definitely is a challenge. Her husband is not as well as he used to be. There are all kinds of things she doesn't know how to do yet. And maybe even some lessons on the computer not taught by the husband. It's like having your parent teach you to drive. Not always the best idea. There's a fraying of tempers that happens that doesn't happen with somebody who's just detached and not part of the family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Go to the CPA, you know, explain this tax return to me. I think that's another big mistake. Women sometimes just sign the tax return and they don't look. I've had cases where women are not even aware of what money comes in. They don't have any idea where the investments are. They don't even know how to read the statement. They just sign it. And, you know, sometimes even people who are in their 60s and 70s get divorced. You know, it's not a young people's game anymore. In fact, isn't I think I read statistically there's a higher percentage that you're finding of divorce among elderly. Have you read that?
No, but I don't find it too hard to believe.
Well, we're living longer, and you know,
Yeah, we last a long time. It's one thing if you think I can do this
well,
for five
sometimes,
more years, and another if you think I've got to do this for 30 more years and you're not enjoying it. So yeah, that can be an issue
yeah.
too.
So I think not being aware of, not being able to read a tax return, not figuring out what it is, not knowing where all the gold is hidden. You know, you need to know where it is because sometimes spouses can make mistakes. They can invest in stuff that is not to your liking in terms of risk. I always think, isn't it interesting? You get a marriage license and you can have children. We should have instructions on how to do children, but we never really talk about money to the spouse. You know, how do you think about money? And basically, you really should look at how were they raised? What did their mother say about money? Their father about money? Where did they live? How do they think about money? Have they got a scarcity mentality or is it easy come, easy go? You know, how that, and if you get two people with two different financial backgrounds, that coming together is oftentimes very explosive and very difficult. And it causes, I think, some real problems.
So sometimes I'm imagining if people have very different values about money. One is, say, um, the easy come, easy go, and the other one is very strict and
Oh,
very
yeah.
fearful about money. Then I would think sometimes the woman is going to just give in because otherwise it's a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm also thinking that maybe embarrassment about not knowing this keeps a woman from asking these questions, and embarrassment that it's going to take her time to learn these things that
Mhm.
of course it's going to take her time just to get the language of it, much less all the details that she may need to know. Yeah.
Right. So again, it's trying to educate yourself as much as possible, be in charge. I think another area that I um, am concerned about is that, people don't do budgets. I mean, I suppose I give more people, I'd like you to fill this out. Two things. One of them is, what is your outflow? When people come in and say, well, how much is I going to need to live? And I go, how much do you spend? Because even as a widow, what do you spend? What is your lifestyle? What do you expect to be able to still buy and do? And so it's a budget. It's line item. What do you pay for everything? Whether it's house cleaning or whether it's cosmetics, whether it's your hair, whether it's, the gym membership, property taxes, insurance, car insurance. I mean, you got 2 dogs. What does it cost for the vet bills? You've got to get a handle on what is the outflow, and then where is the inflow coming, and where does it come from, and be smart about Social Security. I can remember, working with young gals, and I would say, are you putting any, they work, and are you putting money away into a 401k? Oh, no, because I just get the extras. What? You're not putting money in your own retirement, but you're working? Well, I just do the extras. My husband's going to provide. Okay, So I think sometimes women have discounted the fact that what they make, they should have some assets too, and they can have some assets. The other thing is inheritances. And that's, I think, sometimes where some big mistakes are made. An inheritance from your family comes to you, and it is your sole and separate property. It's up to you whether you want to commingle it and put it with your spouse's money. You can create in your trust where you identify your separate property, and that property, you can share the income, but maybe you want that money to stay with your family and not take the risk that if you die, your husband's going to remarry, and then she's going to be drinking your lattes. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So you have to understand also information about wills and trusts and how money passes and what are your rights in terms of sole and separate property. And, you know, how much money are you going to be actually living on? And that comes back to taxes to, wait a minute, where is the money coming? Is it taxes ordinary income or is it taxes capital gains? And be aware of what inflation does and what it costs. Robin, what was the first gallon of gas that you paid for?
I think it was like 27 cents or something like that. I mean, it
Yeah,
was really, really, really inexpensive. And the loaf of bread was a quarter
yes,
long time ago. But
yes.
yeah, look at how it's changed.
The nickel candy bar,
Oh, yeah. And they were bigger.
that's inflation. So sometimes as a widow, it's hard to think that, and it's hard to think, what if I live another 10, 15, 20 years? Look at the rest homes. Who's there? It's women. We live longer typically than men. I think we're sort of catching up a little bit with women in the workplace and the stress they're under, but typically it's women. And so you have to be thinking, I've I've got to think about the expenses are going to continue to go up, and my money also has to be going up. And so that's the other mistake. Sometimes we're so nervous about having that we clench onto it and we tie ourselves up, sometimes at very low rates. In the before 2022, when interest rates were going up to 5%, we were kind of stuck at 20-year treasuries at 2.5%. Well, if you lock yourself in at 2.5, 2.8%, and inflation is higher than that, are you making any money to offset it? No, you're not even breaking even. You're going to go in the hole. So there has to be some kind of knowledge about what do you spend now? What is the inflation rate? And how my money is working for me to offset and grow enough so that I can keep that, okay, without taking too much risk. And that's the deciding factor.
It occurs to me when you were talking about the things that we pay money for, for our hair being done, whatever, that we need to be willing to pay money to have our money managed as well. And that perhaps whoever the husband was working with might not be someone we feel comfortable talking with. It's so important because women live on a much more emotional level than men do. It's not just business. We have to feel understood. We have to feel that we have the right to talk. We have the right to question. So perhaps it makes sense to get a different person to be the one you trust with your monies and the decisions you're making, to advise you, all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because none of us, we're not experts on everything. And I'm so glad that there are people who are really good at that sort of
Yeah.
monetary thing, the numbers thing, because I'm not good at it. I want somebody watching over me, and I'm very willing to pay for that because it's that important. Without that, Pat knows the story. I'm not going to go into it, but I would literally not have anything. I mean, she saved me. So, because I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, there are people that will help you. And I think that you interview them and you talk with them and you feel whether or not you are connecting, on an intellectual and on an understanding level. Do they hear you? Do they hear you? And are they concerned? I think, gosh, the world of the market, I've been doing this, over 40 years now. My original role in life, I started as a teacher, and I got to tell you what I do really. I just teach people about money. I teach people about life. I teach to say, come on, let's lighten up a little bit here. Let's start giving yourself a raise because you've got enough money to live on. Let's start creating quality of life now. And it's just not, the game isn't won by those who die with the most money. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? So there's a good balance, and sometimes you need someone to say to you, as a widow, plan something. I like to have them plan a significant event in the lives of your children. Create something that's wonderful for the family. Don't just give them money. You go too. Do you know what I mean? So create something where you can share in that experience. And that's what widows, I think, need to be doing. Create memories for those who are left behind.
I really
And at the
believe that.
same time, don't give away the farm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And be really smart about how to title your stuff. I'm at the stage now, I look at the closets and I go, gosh, I'm not a hoarder. I'm not. But I've acquired stuff over time, and most of it doesn't mean anything to me at this point. I just want to, and I don't want my kids. I think that's what widows need to be doing, to start, if you haven't worn that for the last 5 years, unless it's a classic and it's got some name brand, it goes. And the silver that we've been thought was so wonderful when you're first married, our kids don't want it. They don't want to polish it. Life has changed so much that I think as widows, you also think that you've got all these treasures, and these treasures are not treasures to our children. They become burdens for them to have to deal with. So I think that's kind of one of the things that I sometimes talk about. What are you doing with all the stuff you're not using? Can you give it away? Can you sell it? Can you get on eBay? Somebody will buy it. We have people that'll bring in, things like stamp collections and coin collections. And we happen to have someone who understands those things and can advise them a little bit. But sometimes it's the yard rose. It's it's the stuff that we have been collecting for 80 plus years that we got from our mothers, you know what I mean? Or grandmothers. And now it's a different world. Start giving those as gifts, give them away to your grandkids, get them out of the house so that they don't have the burden of coming in and cleaning things up. But your trust, your will, have somebody look at it, make sure that everything's done. Don't leave it to go to probate, because probate, the judge is going to decide who the heir is, and it ties things up and it makes it very public. Everybody knows your business. And I don't know where you live, people are real nosy, but take tend your knitting, is what my grandma would say, and make sure that you have tidied things up, for yourself. It's an emotionally difficult time for widows, but it's very, very important. In fact, if you're lucky, you get that done prior, and get it all sealed where everybody's still in the right mind and everybody knows who's going to get what and how you're going to live. And you've paid attention to things like the estate taxes, income taxes. Yeah.
So, Pat, because we've been talking so much about widows, what about widowers? Do you have any advice for widowers? Because, of course, that happens too.
I almost feel sorrier for the widowers, it kind of depends. They go through the same grieving processes. They're lost, if they've been handling things, they're not the ones that give away their money. I got to tell you, they don't. But sometimes they quit living in order to pass the money to the next generation. And they will sometimes stay in their homes too long. Do you know what I mean? Or try to stay in the home too long, where they really should be going into a senior living place where there's getting interaction, especially if their spouse was the creative one and created their social life, then they sometimes become isolates. So widowers have to look at that. Sometimes it's just getting rid of the stuff again, her clothes in the closet, her shoes. Sometimes they can't do it, or sometimes the kids come in and they move it too fast. They don't give them a chance to go through their grieving process. The kids, okay, she's gone, Dad, now this is what we're going to do. And so they need to take time too. They need to go through the process. They're going to be a little angry. If they were happily married, they're probably going to remarry.
Mhm.
They're going to remarry. A lot of women, they may have been happily married, but I hear a lot of them, they won't remarry. Isn't that different?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Finding that freedom. Yeah.
that's exactly right. I don't have to, cook. I don't have to do this. Finally, I can do what I want to do. And so, and you've heard the old phrase, I don't want to become a nurse. So they're going to marry another old man. And what are you going to do? You're going to be a nurse. And sometimes I tell you, widows, be careful, because men are looking for a nurse and a purse, someone to take care of them financially. So I think money talk is good pillow talk. And I think that if you're a senior and you're marrying or dating somebody and you're thinking about marrying, you do what I did to my husband. I said, next time you come up, bring your last 2 years' tax returns.
Oh my
I
gosh.
wanted to make sure that, he's financially independent. I'm not taking care of a man. So come
Yeah.
on. You know what I mean? Just get it on even keel and be straightforward about it, and no surprises.
So it's okay to be practical. We don't have to
Oh,
make it nice all the time. We don't
I,
have to
I
act like,
think you better be.
oh, sweet little me. I don't have those kinds of questions. Be practical, right?
Well, what you did at 20 or 25, at 75 and 80, come on, eyes wide open, eyes wide open.
We should know better by then. Yeah. All right, let's come back to you, Pat, as a person.
Okay.
Um, in your life, and it's been a long life and a very productive life, do you have any regrets?
Oh, if I have any regrets, it's probably around my children. I sometimes feel a little guilty about working as much as I've worked. I think who's probably paid a little bit of price for that are my kids. You know, I knew that there was a lot of stay-at-home moms that, would have chocolate chip cookies at 3 o'clock and milk when they came home from school, and that wasn't me. So, sometimes I think, I don't know if they got cheated, but I think I got cheated a little bit, by working as much. I think they also had great benefits in terms of being able to travel and go to Europe and, had good educations and whatever. I made sure that they worked in the summers so that they understood the value of work, but um, I think that's one of my regrets, maybe not having a little bit more balance in my life. I think when you're an entrepreneur and you start your own business and you do this, I think for me, I just give a lot and to it. And I think maybe one of my girls said to me one time, "Mom, I didn't get enough of you." And so I make point of creating significant emotional events and see them and do things that are kind of special. So I don't want them to be sick of me, but I want to make sure that they got enough.
Well, the other side of that, I'm remembering a client I had many, many years ago, and her boys came in to see me, and each of them said to me, "Can you please teach my mom to take care of herself?" Because they
Wow.
felt the burden of her whole emotional being on their shoulders.
Oh,
So sometimes being that woman who's out there in the world and taking care of business, that can be a freeing thing for children as
oh
well.
yeah, yeah,
And it sounds like one of your intentions, and I think so much of that is to invest in memories, investing in memories. Use some of that money to make sure that everybody carries away something that can be with them the rest of their life and makes them smile
right.
and grateful and all that. Um, okay, couple more questions. What are you looking forward to next?
Well, what am I looking forward to? I have great grandchildren, not just grandchildren, but I have great grandchildren, and they're very small, and they're like 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. In fact, I have 5 of them, and they're darling. And I'm looking forward to the family gatherings where I get to see the multi generations, and looking forward to seeing what they do. I'm really interested in seeing. Yeah, some of the grandchildren as they're now graduating, and like McKay today is, doing an internship here. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they create for themselves, what kind of life they create. Mm, I kind of like art a lot. I love looking at art, and I'm quite visual. I don't have any artistic talent, I don't think, but one of the things I really want to do is try to recreate myself, and I want to make enough time that I would like to take smart lessons. I know how to play the piano, and I'm terrible, but I think I'd even take piano lessons. You know, I like that. I'm playing mahjong. I just took it up, and oh, it's addictive. I just love it. It is so fun. And I play with these young girls, and it's fast, and you keep your mind going. And I think that's fun. And I've redecorated houses enough and redecorated the office just recently. And I don't know, in my brain, I always keep thinking of recreating and doing stuff. And so I'm just looking for the next challenge or the next thing that's fun.
I hear that. I hear
Yeah.
that kind of thirst for a challenge. Final question. What message would you give to our viewers and our listeners who are with you and me today?
Um, Life is wonderful. It brings challenges to us, and it tests us. But sometimes at the broken places in our lives, whether it's a death or divorces or wayward kids, sometimes at those broken places, we mend and we become the strongest. And I would say never give up on yourself. Never count yourself lesser than you are. And I think we're more than what we walk around in. The measure of who we are isn't this body that we're walking around in. Some of us got a pass, and we got better health than others. But for every good thing that you've got something that you're working on. that may not show, but all of us have got some tests, some trials, and that's how we become the people that we are. And I think that's our role, is to become the best we can be with what we got.
It's what we've got. And that comes from someone who manages wealth. So it sounds to me like she's saying to all of us, we are our own source of wealth, treasure ourselves. Thank you so much, Pat, for being with us.
Thank you. It's been delightful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.